Hey, team players, welcome to another episode here. We're going to be breaking down fantasy football potential, specifically today, talking about Deshaun Watson. And Bob, Watson is falling in this category of quarterbacks right after the main eight, if you will. So Watson is basically coming up with a decision of Watson, Prescott, Tua, Cousins, Daniel Jones. He's in that neighborhood. And to me, I think that he should not be considered in that group, but he should be considered with Herbert, Fields, and Lawrence. And my entire reason for this, Bob, is the AFC North incredibly soft schedule compared to what Miami has to play. I believe that talent-wise, there's not a great stretch between Watson and Tua, but given the fact that A, Cleveland has a horrendous defense, and B, that the AFC North is not playing good defenses with the exception of when he plays Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, that's only 4 of his games where he's playing an elite defense. The rest of the year, Baltimore doesn't have a pass rush. No one in the AFC South has a real pass rush. He's going to have time to move the ball, and he's going to have to because his own defense is horrendous. And, Bob, this is my argument for why I think Watson is the reason to say, you know what? I don't need to go out and take a Burrow or a Herbert who doesn't have running ability. I can get Watson, who plays just as soft a schedule, going to be playing from behind a lot, and runs the ball. I don't understand why he's relegated to like the 8th through 12th quarterback.
So, Joe, pull up the Superflex mock that we did, so we can take a look at a little bit more about the value of Deshaun Watson.
So Watson goes right here.
As you take a look at what the fourth team did in this league, typically speaking, what we've seen out of Superflex leagues when we've done mocks is that fourth pick is either going to be a quarterback, Christian McCaffrey, or Justin Jefferson. There's no other options there. And typically, it's going to be a running quarterback, so either Lamar or Fields instead of Burrow. And here's something that we need to bring out into the open, because it's really important that you said it earlier, and it's really important that we take a look at it just with visualizing it on this board here. If you are in a Superflex league and you are sitting at number 4, you should not take a quarterback. Joe Burrow provides you with limited value when comparing that to Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Chase, and Kelsey. Joe Burrow is probably not going to finish the season as the number 1 quarterback. He has a good chance to, but he's probably not going to.
Bob. Cincinnati doesn't throw people out.
Let me finish here. There's a good chance that Joe Burrow could get interceptions in line and not throw as many interceptions. And I think that is what's going to set him to the next level. There's a good chance, but he doesn't provide enough value with his feet, but he does get certain red zone rushing attempts, similar to Josh Allen. So that does play a role into why you might think he's good there. But he really is not a good value when you really take a look at it, regardless of if it's a Superflex league or not. Anytime you take Joe Burrow in a draft, you are taking him in the 4th round, maybe in the 3rd round, and in a Superflex, people are taking him in the 1st round. And you're destroying the value that you can give to your team. Because I want to say this.
That roster here
Imagine a team.
This team right here.
Imagine a team with Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler. Or imagine a team with Justin Jefferson and A.J. Brown, or Justin Jefferson and Eckler, the way that this fell right here. You're not going to get the same players all the time, but realistically speaking, what a Superflex league does is it boosts up the first 8 quarterbacks by a lot, and they're now in the first 2 rounds. And so you're going to see all that talent that we were going to take in the first round and second round. We're going to see that fall. So pull that back up again. And this is the case that I'm making why Deshaun Watson in a super flex league is better value if you don't take a quarterback in the first round. If you take a quarterback in the first round, even in a super flex league, it doesn't necessitate that you take Deshaun Watson in the third round or fourth round. He is a good player. We saw that. The last time we saw him, I believe he threw for 33 touchdowns and 7 interceptions on a really crappy Houston team. And so the way that Cleveland is built, they have a good running game. They have a solid wide receiver 1. They have a solid tight end. They have a really, really potentially good wide receiver 2 and a very admirable wide receiver 3. This team is built in a way that Deshaun Watson should be successful. This team will be on the field a lot. And it is going to necessitate that Deshaun Watson passes the ball a lot. Now, will that lead to more interceptions? Yeah. There's a good chance that Deshaun Watson is going to get more interceptions. But this, what I'm trying to bring up is that if you are taking Deshaun Watson, it is perfectly fine to take him as your first option in a super flex in the third round so that you get better value out of your first round and out of your second round picks, because then you will have potentially 2 top 5 scoring players from their position instead of sacrificing yourself and taking 2 top 10 quarterbacks. Yeah, quarterbacks score the most points in the NFL, so that's, it's a good thing to get 2 of them in a super flex league, but you can get those points from other players, particularly players in the top 10 at their position or in the top 5 at their position, because I've seen Nick Chubb or I've seen Saquon Barkley score 25, 30 points in a game as well. And I've seen Joe Burrow not do that. And I've seen players that are quarterbacks not do that. And so in a regular league, Deshaun Watson is perfectly valued at the right time. If you're taking Deshaun Watson, you are taking him at a time where your choices of quarterback are going to be Trevor Lawrence, Tua, and Dak. And these 3 guys, coupled with potentially Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones, who go a little bit later, these quarterbacks are entirely serviceable and going to score points. Now, and the difference in points that they score on a week-to-week basis is, say you take the best game from Patrick Mahomes last year, and I think it was like 35 or 40 points or something like that, depending on your league settings. Kelsey scored more in that game than Patrick Mahomes did. And so, depending on how your scoring goes, whether it's 4 points for a passing touchdown, 6 points for a passing touchdown, usually a quarterback will top off at 4 passing touchdowns on like a really elite game and have maybe 400 yards passing. And depending on how your scoring is, you could see 24 points out of the touchdowns, and then for every 100 yards, you get a couple of points here and there, or for every 25 passing yards, you get a couple of points here and there. So what I'm trying to say is, super flex leagues, although they are entirely interesting to me, they overvalue taking a quarterback early, because you can construct a similar team and still probably put up a boatload of points. You just have to prevent the guy who has Mahomes and Hurts from getting also Justin Herbert and Fields or Lamar Jackson. You don't want that to happen. You don't want this one guy to have 2 top 5 options. But you also don't want to sacrifice your team, is what I'm trying to say. And so for Deshaun, he is one of those players that I'm targeting in maybe the 6th or 7th round, and I'm not targeting a guy like Joe Burrow because there's still incredible value at the wide receiver position in the 4th round. There's still some pretty quality running backs in the 4th round, but as we start to get into the 6th, 7th, and 8th rounds, where a couple of those like the Dax and the Trevor Lawrences are going, it makes more sense to take a quarterback there because those quarterbacks should outscore those wide receivers or running backs on a week-to-week basis.